On this episode of Scammer Stories, we all meet that one friend some point in our lifetime where there's an instant connection. You know, the kind of person that just has that spark like a flame, and they draw you in quickly. If you're lucky, that person becomes not only a friend for life, but more like family. Well, that's what Johnathan Walton thought he'd found in a best friend who just happened to be an Irish heiress. But he ended up losing $100,000 to her scamming ways. And it all started with just a regular woman, really, but something about her was exotic and captured Johnathan. We'll let him tell the story. You're going to hear him referencing the book Anatomy of a Con Artist, the 14 red flags to spot scammers, grifters, and thieves, as well as his podcast called Queen of the Con. Now, like most episodes of Scammer Stories, there's always something new and weird in each episode. This episode includes witchcraft and prostitution. So Johnathan Walton is a former TV reporter turned podcaster and author. Here's Johnathan to tell the story on Mair Smyth.
My name is Johnathan Walton. I live in Los Angeles. I'm a reality television producer, and I got scammed out of close to $100,000 by a professional con artist. But I didn't know she was a professional con artist. I didn't know that was a thing. You know, one of my favorite movies of all time, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, it's about professional con artists, but I thought that was just make-believe. I didn't know there are potentially millions of these people walking around amongst us. And the reason we don't know they're professional con artists is they haven't scammed us yet.
Life was going pretty good before this nightmare started. Johnathan just had some issues with his family after coming out, but he was in a loving relationship with a successful career.
So, you know, I'm a happily married gay man, and she became like my best friend. At the time, my family had kind of disowned me for being gay, and she told me she was a new neighbor. And she told me, well, her family disowned her too because they're trying to get her inheritance. And she started unpacking her life story, which was all made up. But I had no idea because it seemed so real.
And the one thing is, I listened to the podcast and I started the book, but you said that she was from Ireland. And did she have an Irish accent?
She had a strange accent.
Okay.
Yeah, she had a weird accent. And again, it's the power of suggestion, right? Someone tells you, I'm from Sri Lanka, and they sound weird. You're like, well, I guess that's what a Sri Lankan accent sounds like. So it was a similar deal. I don't know anyone from Ireland. I don't have any Irish friends, sad to say. I remember I was being interviewed on this Irish morning show, and they're like, how could you think she was from Ireland? I'm like, listen, Ireland's not the center of the universe, lady. I mean, it'd be like if you had a new neighbor and they said in Ireland and they told you they're from Indiana.
Exactly.
You know anything about Indiana? No. So they could have told you anything and sounded anyway. And you'd be like, well, I guess that's what it's like in Indiana.
I know one Irish person with an Irish accent. One. So
I mean, I thought I knew one too, but I was wrong.
Yeah.
Dead wrong.
Okay, so she was your neighbor and she had all this fortune and money coming to her from her family. And then how did she rope you in?
So, and I say this in the book, right? Con artists don't outsmart you. They outfeel you. Con artists are not smarter than you, but they're clever about getting into your life and getting into your emotional mind and figuring out how to push your buttons and pull strings and tug on your heart. Like, because my family had kind of disowned me and her family had disowned her, and we became very close very quick, we weren't just friends, you know? In a way, we were two discarded souls living in Los Angeles with our families across the world not talking to us. And she would show me, and I write about this, red flag number 6, technology. She would show me emails and texts from her family, from her cousin Finton and Dearmit and her uncle Patridge Clark, who died and left, you know, a 25 million euro estate to be divided up. I would see emails and texts from her barrister. She had props. She had a framed Irish Constitution hanging on her living room wall. She pointed out that her great-great-grandfather was a signatory. You know, and I never thought to question any of that because, again, a red flag I write about in the book, red flag number 12, stories from faraway places. He told a lot of stories from faraway places. All professional con artists do. And all things being equal, if you can't confirm it's true, you just believe it's true. It's impossible to confirm all these things when you're hearing all these stories from faraway places. So long story short, I was helping her. She was locked in this legal battle over inheritance, and I started loaning her money. And the first $5,000 I loaned her, she paid me back the next day. And this is another red flag I write about. Red flag number 8, beak wedding, right? You see a little money up front, and this happens in love cons and romance scams and a lot of investment cons. You see a little money up front, so you're confident in investing more or giving more. So she paid me back the first $5,000 I ever loaned her, so I felt comfortable loaning her more.
Was the first $5,000, was that when she went to jail? I'm trying to remember from your podcast.
Yes. She went to jail, and I bailed her out, and she paid me back the bail money the next day. Come to find out, it wasn't even her money. She was scamming a local politician, and he's the one who paid me back with his money because she told him some crazy stories. He still is a big-time lawyer at this real estate investing firm, and he was handling the estate for her Uncle Patridge Clark, which was a different con. She told him that he was trying to leave his $20 billion empire to his wayward gay son who lives in California, who he had cast out decades earlier. That was all made up too, but that's how she got into this guy's life.
Johnathan said she was able to meet the politician through a website where a woman is what's called a sugar baby who has sex regularly with wealthy men for money. I mean, some people say that's not the case in this case, so that's what happened. The interesting thing is, if you saw her at the grocery store, you may never even give her a second look. Still, she was able to charm men.
So she was brilliant at mingling her different victims, and we didn't know any better, she told me this is the politician she's dating. He's married, and keep it hush-hush, and I did. She had a profile on sugardaddyforme.com, but I don't know if he was a sugar daddy. I still don't know where they met exactly, but she had a dozen other sugar daddies, married men she was seeing who were paying her a monthly fee for sex. So she was sort of a sex worker. And then when they wanted to end the relationship, she would blackmail them and threaten to go to their wives. And they'd pay her $5,000, $10,000 to go away. And she'd go away. That was her income. She was a professional con woman. And she was doing all of this while she was my best friend and sister. I loved her like a sister. We ended phone calls with, I love you, I love you. I don't know how she found the time other than this is what they do. This is what they do.
So she went to the jail and you bonded her out, and then the politician came and gave you the money back, right?
Right.
And that's
right.
So you thought, well, she's good for it.
It was from her. Yeah, absolutely. So then as the fight heats up to get her inheritance, she needs more money. They froze her bank account, she said. Her evil family paid off some dirty district attorney in L.A. to freeze her bank accounts, and I started loaning her money to live on, cash. I loaned her $25,000 cash. And then she said, for this case to go away, lawyer fees and court fees, it's going to cost another $50,000. So I let her charge my credit cards $50,000.
I'm trying to think what I would do in this situation. If my best friend needed $50,000 to get her inheritance, I'd find a way. This story doesn't seem all that far-fetched, actually. Eventually, Johnathan went to the police, but you know how this part of the story goes.
Police turned me away because they thought I was a crackpot.
Oh, I hated that part of the story. They thought you were a crackpot at first, but then they kind of changed their tune a little bit after you talked to them and showed them that you had your shit together.
Yeah, I showed them, evidence and a timeline and a compelling story, and they reluctantly took a police report, but they didn't think there was anything they'd be able to do to help me.
Now, this woman was messing with the wrong victim. After authorities initially dismissed his case, Walton used his investigative skills to build a compelling case that ended up landing her in jail, but not until much later.
So I, started my own investigation. I started a blog. I started uncovering victims all over LA. While she was scamming me, she was scamming dozens of others with crazy made-up stories that were so different. Remember Bob, the Newport Beach engineer I mentioned in the podcast?
Yes.
She met him on Tinder, goes on a date. He says he just got a divorce and he's unhappy with a custody arrangement with his kid. She's like, well, I'm a child custody investigator for the courts. I can help you. That's the red flag number 1 I write about in my book. 99% of all con artists enter your life offering to help. Because who doesn't love a helper? You meet a stranger, They want to help you. Oh, thank you. And you feel gratitude towards them. And that's just how they get their hooks in you. And then they do this red flag. Red flag number 13, I write about in the book, TMI, too much information. And Mair did this to me. This is the tool of every con artist, and this is how they keep victims quiet, right? You meet a new person, new boyfriend, new girlfriend, new neighbor, new coworker, and they're kind, and they just want to help you, and they're paying for dinners all the time. And then they start divulging their deepest, darkest secrets. And that does two things. Number one, it makes you feel, oh, this person must really think a lot of me. They really trust me with all their personal secrets. And number two, oh, I can trust them. And it's human nature. When someone says hello, you say hello. Someone says, how you doing? You say, fine. And how are you? We are all human beings pre-programmed to respond in kind to whatever stimulus is coming at us from another human being. So someone starts divulging their deep, dark secrets. Naturally, you start divulging your deep, dark secrets, and that makes you feel close to them. But here's the thing. Their deep, dark secrets are completely made up. Yours are real. So by the time they scam you, they know all your secrets, and you are loath to report them to police or to anybody because you don't want the secrets getting out there. The last thing in the world you want is your personal affairs documented in a police report, or worse, in a court transcript. It's a terrifying thought. So red flag number 13, TMI. That's how professional con artists keep their victims quiet.
The favorite part of your podcast, you went to pick Mair up from jail, and you recorded the conversation of when she got in your car, and by that point, you realized you've been scammed. So tell me what that conversation was like.
And again, I wish I knew more at the time, but I could only know what I knew, right? I had figured out she lied to me to get money. I didn't know she was a professional con artist. I didn't know I'd go on to find 46 victims all over the world. I just knew she scammed me. So I was hoping to get a confession, to go to police with this confession. Who knew they wouldn't really care? But I confronted her and I said, you've been lying to us this whole time to get money. And all she could say is, that's not true, Johnathan. That's not true. And she started welling up, like tears in her eyes. This woman, all con artists, not just mine, they're professional actors and actresses. She could cry like Demi Moore ghost tears at the drop of a hat. And she cried many times. And I recall, consoling her and rocking her as she convulsed and cried, and her tears wet my shirt like they were real tears, but it was all an act.
Johnathan said very sternly, you are not my friend, and the only time I want to hear from you is when you're going to send me a payment. She said okay, and then just walked away.
After I confronted her, I told her I'm going to go to police, and she basically said, do what you have to do. I didn't do anything. I naively thought that by confronting her, she'd be scared and she'd pay us back. But that is not what happened.
Okay, so what happened next? Then this whole thing, you learned she was scamming neighbors. She was scamming people all over the world.
I went to police. They turned me away. I pushed back. They reluctantly took a report and said there's nothing. They don't think this is a case because, I'm not dead and I gave her the money. It's really not a crime. Good luck. So I started a blog about her just to warn people. I didn't know there were other victims. So I started a blog just to warn people about her and tell my story. This is what she did to me. Do not give her money. And then one by one, I started hearing from other victims in Los Angeles that she's scammed with different stories. And then I started hearing from victims in Florida, in Maine, in Michigan, in Tennessee, in New York City. Like, she was scamming people all over the place. And then one day I get a call from a police detective in Northern Ireland. She'd actually lived in Northern Ireland. She wasn't from Ireland. She moved there because she met a guy online. And she married a guy over there and lived there for like 8 or 9 years and scammed dozens of people over there. And they were looking for her. So my blog, was the touchstone, was the linchpin of this whole operation. I unmasked her. And every time I found a new victim, I wrote about them in my blog.
But it started with Bob the engineer. Describe who Bob the engineer is.
Yeah, my blog, he was one of the first people to call me. And Mair had met him on Tinder. He was a well-to-do engineer in Newport Beach, a really, ritzy, expensive city just south of Los Angeles. And he had 2 homes that he owned. And he, had fallen in love with Mair. And he believed Mair was going to inherit $25 million from her uncle, and the money was coming any day. And she got a realtor. She started looking at homes. I mean, you can get a realtor with a bluff. So this realtor is showing Mair and Bob dozens of 10, 15, $20 million homes on the coast in Newport Beach. So she puts in an offer on one. Like, this is how far you can get with bravado and confidence, right? They are confidence artists. Con artist is short for confidence artist. So right when she puts in an offer, a written offer, she tells Bob, I'm going to put your name on this house. I want to own it with you. And Bob's like, no. That wouldn't be right, because it was a $12 million home. And he's like, if our relationship goes south, I'll own half the home, like $6 million. That's not right. She's like, well, just add my name to the title of your two homes and we'll be equal. And she drew up the paperwork to add her name to his homes. And around that time, his ex-wife started getting curious about who this new woman, Mair Smyth, was in Bob's life. She Googled Mair Smyth, found my blog, showed it to Bob. She was living with Bob at the time. Bob printed it out, brought it home, and showed it to Mair. And Mair didn't say a word. She just turned around and ran out of the house, jumped in her car, and drove away.
Okay, now, but all you had was Bob, the engineer, and where he lived. So you started a blog and put his picture up and you said, I'm looking for Bob.
Right, yeah. So, that didn't help Bob find my blog. The only reason Bob found my blog is because his ex-wife, because she had texted me a picture of this guy she's dating when we were friends, like near the end, before I confronted her, before I knew the truth. All I had was, she's like, I'm dating this guy, Bob. I'm like, oh, he seems like a nice guy. She's like, oh, it's getting hot and heavy. We're getting serious. I just knew his name was Bob. And that was one of my blog posts. Like, I know his name is Bob. I know he's probably getting scammed. If you know him, warn him. But that didn't really do anything. What did it was Mair, she moved into Bob's house and was spending time with her kids, this ex-wife. And she's like, who the hell is this Mair Smyth spending all this time with my kids now? So she just Googled, not knowing what she'd find. And then she found my blog. Okay,
because you had her name on there. So that's how it pulled up your blog. Okay.
Yes. She had 23 aliases. Every time I found a new alias, I added it to the tags, and so it would come up.
Is that when she found out that Mair had conspired against her and said that she was doing like BDSM in her house or whatever?
Yeah, because this was the scam that Bob believed. So Mair convinced Bob that on their first date that she worked for the courts as a child custody investigator and could help him. Red flag number one, I just want to help. Could help him get a better custody arrangement with his kids. So Bob believed that Mair's on the case. And then Mair says, this private eye she works with is finding all this evidence about Bob's ex-wife, that she's running this BDSM sex ring out of her house while the kids are asleep upstairs. Of course, that was not true. But again, red flag number 6, technology. Mair was using cell phones and emails, and she'd create characters on Google accounts and text and email herself and text and email Bob. So Bob thought he was talking to an entire cast of characters, a private eye, a lawyer, the manager of a hockey team, a star player. She brought these people to life using technology.
She got Bob to fire his longtime nanny.
She did, yeah, because again, I write about this red flag in my book, Anatomy of a Con Artist, the 14 red flags to spot scammers, grifters, and thieves. Red flag number 4, isolation. A professional con artist will isolate you from anyone they think might talk you out of going along with a con. And in this scenario, that was Sarah. Sarah was Bob's nanny. Sarah was a smart woman. Sarah asked questions. Sarah was going to be trouble. So Mair concocted a story, which, she's a professional liar, wholly believable, easy to do for her. She concocted a story to Bob that she caught Sarah drunk a bunch of times around the kids, and Bob is, very protective of his kids. So he fired her based on a lie. It was not true. Sarah had been in Bob's life for close to 10 years, and in an instant, she was gone. And Mair had Bob to herself, and Bob started leaning on Mair to help with the kids. And that is when the ex-wife got suspicious.
Okay, so you finally she did end up going to court one day. How did that ball get rolling?
Yeah, because, so she had another case against her before my case. She pled guilty to stealing $200,000 from her employer, Pacific Islands Travel. So after I confronted her and I ran a background check on her and pulled all these records and all these other cases, I realized this Pacific Islands case is still open and there was a court date. So I started getting all the victims together and meeting her in court. And you should have seen, she turned white when she saw us. It was me, it was Sarah, it was Bob, it was Fran, it was Heather. a bunch of people she'd scammed in LA. I got them all together and we went to court because she was going through restitution hearings in the Pacific Islands case. That was a great day. It brings a smile to my face.
I bet it does. And then you talk about how she came up with another scam to avoid going back to court to see you again.
Yeah, she didn't want to face us in this other case. And again, we had nothing to do with that other case. But listen, court is a public forum. Unless they block the courtroom, any member of the public is allowed in. And we were just members of the public coming to observe. So the next time she didn't want to face us. So she takes an Uber to this mental hospital and says she's going to kill herself. And they admit her. And the judge believes it. So she gets out of going to court for like 3 months. She's in the mental hospital on suicide watch. It was insane, but they're very believable. Even these, crusty criminal judges believed her. They let her get out of going to court for 3 months. But eventually she did come back. I was there with Sarah. We took pictures, even though we're not allowed to, of her in her suicide gown, the suicide protection gown so she can't harm herself. And the judge is talking to her. Do you understand? Like it's his daughter. You understand you can't do this again, young lady? You got to be careful. I'm like, give me a break, judge. She's a con woman. This is a con. But I couldn't say that because they would have arrested me.
Okay. And the one thing I want to talk to you about is I thought it was so interesting when you talked to one of your friends on the podcast. When something like this happens to you, your friends talked about how you got obsessed with it.
Oh, yeah.
When my mom was going through her scam, everyone in the family got obsessed with it. It does become an obsession.
There is nothing great achieved in this world without obsession. If you want to be an Olympic athlete and win a gold medal, you got to be obsessed. If you're trying to lose weight and build muscle, which I'm trying to do, you got to be obsessed. Whatever Herculean task you are endeavoring, it takes obsession. And bringing a con artist to justice is no different. Yes, I was obsessed. Yes, everyone thought I was crazy. Yes, even my husband, everyone told me to drop it. So I didn't drop it. I just started pursuing it in secret. So by day, I pretended to be normal. But when no one's looking, I'm 100% obsessed. I'm a dog with a bone, and this woman's going down, and I'm going to see to it. And sure enough, that is what came to pass. But it took years of obsession, and I don't regret it. And I feel for your mother. I feel for your family. If you've been conned, it's a violation on so many levels. It's not just the money; it's the trust. And you just can't get over it. You need justice. I get it. And
you tracked down Mair's daughter, which was so interesting. I can't even imagine growing up with a mother like that. What did she say that really was the most interesting part to you?
Well, Mair would use her daughter in her cons. When the daughter was a little girl, she had a penchant for calligraphy and for art, and she could duplicate handwriting because she would watch Harriet the Spy. It was her favorite movie, and she loved faking handwriting as for fun. So Mair put her daughter to work, and Mair would have her daughter forge all these mortgage documents because Mair was working in mortgages at the time. This is when they were living in Northern Ireland. So Mair, over the years in Northern Ireland, would have her young daughter forge hundreds and hundreds of mortgage documents and get hundreds of thousands of pounds / dollars over there. And she used a little girl in her con. It's disgusting. Bad enough you're a con woman. To get your daughter to be an accessory, it sickens me on so many levels.
And she grew up to be a decent person, you said.
She did. She stopped talking to her mother as soon as she turned 18, and she helped me. She didn't have to help me, but she was a star witness. By the time this went to trial, I told the DA, the local Los Angeles DA, about her. He's like, you think she'd testify? And I'm like, I'm going to ask her. And she did. She flew out to L.A., nothing in it for her, just to tell the court what a lying, cheating scoundrel her mother's always been. And that definitely helped me get a conviction.
Okay, so what is happening with Mair now? What happened with the conviction, and how long ago was that, and where is she now, and things like that?
So the trial was in January 2019. She was jury deliberated for 3 hours and found her guilty of scamming me. A judge gave her the harshest sentence he could for one count of felony grand theft by inducement. The judge gave her 5 years. She got out early in December of 2020, less than 2 years because of COVID. COVID happened, and they were releasing 10,000 inmates in California for nonviolent offenders. So she disappeared. But this whole time, I'm uncovering new victims, and I'm sharing all this info with Northern Ireland. They claim they're going to be extraditing her. So every time I find a new victim, I'm like, hey, here's another victim. She's still up to her old tricks. How's the extradition coming? We're working on it. We're working on it. We're working on it. Lo and behold, February 2024, she's hiding out in Maine. She's living out of Airbnbs. There's a knock on the door. It's 5 U.S. Marshals, guns drawn. They arrest her. The extradition to Northern Ireland happened. They arrest her. She has an extradition hearing in Maine. I fly out to that hearing to be there just so I can look at her and she could see me, and she did it. It was great. And they flew her over to Northern Ireland in July, and she's sitting in jail right now awaiting trial September 1st.
Love it. I feel like some Eye of the Tiger is playing in the background.
Totally. And I feel vindicated. Everyone thought I was obsessed. Yeah, but you know how many people I've saved from this woman? Mm-hmm. Countless.
And you never got any money back, I'm sure, right? You never got any money
not
back.
From her.
Yeah.
No. But I wrote a book.
Yes.
I'm getting money from that. I did a podcast.
And we're talking right now.
A movie and TV shows.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I got money in other ways, but no, not from her.
Okay. One thing I like about your book is so many advocates and experts, they'll write a book and they'll just say, here are the things not to do. But your book talks about the emotional aspect of it. And that's what I think would really resonate with a victim who's reading your book, like, oh, yeah, this is kind of what's happening to me. Did you kind of take that under advisement when you were writing the book? Like, this is how I felt?
Well, yeah, I mean, it came natural to me because I am a victim and I identify with all victims. And, the last 2 chapters of my book are about, if you're a victim, here's what you got to do. And I lay it out. Pitching a case to police is like pitching a television show to a network executive. You got to make it sexy. You got to do their work for them. If you just go to police crying boo-hoo, they don't care. They got murders and robberies and rapes to deal with. I got scammed. They don't care. So I teach victims how to build a compelling case that police cannot ignore. But more importantly, I'm hoping a lot of non-victims or near victims read the book. And I want to help them spot the con artist in their life, because the truth of the matter is, if I knew then what I know now, I would have identified Mair as a con woman within the first 10 minutes of meeting her, because she was waving a bunch of red flags out of the gate. She wanted to help. She was too kind, too quick. There was so much drama, red flag number 3. She isolated me from people, red flag number 4. She snowed me with stories from faraway places, red flag number 12. She moved around a lot, red flag number 11. Most people will only change addresses 11 times in their lives. By the time I met Mair, she had lived in 46 different places. That is the sign of either a scammer or somebody who works in the military.
And she also wined and dined you.
She did. She was too kind, too quick. Red flag number 2.
Dinners and
these
drinks.
Red flags start to compound. Yeah. But yeah, they all do that. They all do that because they want you to like them. They want you to love them.
Yeah. And you know that now that was probably money from other victims that she was spending on you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This is her whole, we all have jobs. This is her job, is scamming people.
What do you think her motivation was? Just money or something else sicker?
Oh, yeah. She's a psychopath. And, I've spoken at length with FBI criminal profiler Candace DeLong, and she kind of educated me about the difference between sociopaths and psychopaths. Most con artists, I believe, and Candace DeLong believes, are psychopaths, right? Mair, the money is secondary in a lot of her cons, because there's some crazy stories like the Jennifer Aniston con. She didn't make any money from that. She met someone in LA, told her she was best friends with Jennifer Aniston. I know people think that's crazy, but in LA, we all work in TV or entertainment. Like, it's possible someone who's friends with Jennifer Aniston. It's possible, especially Mair is showing this woman texts from Jennifer Aniston, and it says Jennifer Aniston, Jennifer Aniston invited Mair to the Golden Globes that year in 2015, and Mair invited this new friend, and this new friend, got a dress to go to the Golden Globes. And that morning, Jennifer Aniston canceled and said she's not feeling up to it, but it was all a con. But nobody knew it was a con until I exposed her, because, again, Mair lives in Los Angeles. It's possible she knows Jennifer Aniston. There was this whole backstory where Jennifer would visit her on her Irish estates growing up as a child. And, the family was enamored with Jennifer Aniston's acting ability, and they knew she was going to be something one day. Like, there's this incredible backstory. And it just rings true. Stories from faraway places. Red flag number 12.
She said she was of Irish royalty, and there is no Irish royalty, right? That's what you found out later.
Again, right. But at the time, I didn't know anything about Ireland.
I would not know. No, I wouldn't know that either.
So she would tell me, listen, don't tell anyone at the Irish Council that I'm here. They'd be so upset. I'm like, all right, I won't. So she's asking me to keep her secret, so I feel special. That's all part of her plan. They want to make you feel special. They want to make you feel like you can trust them because they're trusting you. So you feel like you can trust them.
And there's one thing that family members are always asking me and I have no answer for. So I wanted to see, your scam was a little different, but you might have some insight. These victims of Mairs that you've found, and when you have talked to them and said you are a scam victim, have you ever had a victim who didn't want to stop the scam and was addicted to the scam and wouldn't end contact with her?
Absolutely. And it's not that they're addicted to the scam. I can tell you what's really happening. It's called denial. And I know that just sounds like an insult, but it's not. Let me explain. I'm an openly gay man now. I came out when I was 30. For the first 30 years of my life, I was in denial. I was dating women. And people were like, did you know you were gay? No. I couldn't accept being gay. So I really did believe if I found the right woman, I wouldn't be gay. Did I have same-sex fantasies? Absolutely. Was I having same-sex sex? You bet. But I was in denial. It's delusional. I believed if I met the right woman, and I'm dating woman after woman after woman, none of them are the right woman. So I really believed, as a way to protect myself, that if I met the right woman, everything would be fine. And I needed that because when I did accept being gay, I planned to take my life. I planned to commit suicide. I didn't want to live. It was a dark time. So that denial, that delusion protected me when I couldn't face it. I've seen this in a lot of con artist victims I've talked to because I've investigated hundreds of cases over the past 8 years, hundreds. And this comes up again and again and again. I'll be talking to a victim and they say something like, well, I knew something was fishy, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you knew something was fishy and you gave her $30,000? But that doesn't make any sense. If you knew something, well, no, I knew. I'm like, no, you didn't know anything. But they cannot admit to being a victim. It's their own gay denial. They can't admit it. So they cover it with, yeah, well, I knew. Well, no, I knew. It's just a coping mechanism. So I see that a lot too. Mair was scamming this elderly woman when she got out. And I heard this from a listener of the podcast. And I talked to this woman's son. And this woman's son tried to warn her, hey, you're being scammed. Mair's a convicted felon, cut off ties. And she refused. She believed Mair. Mair said, I, Johnathan Walton, am madly in love with her, and she wouldn't return my affection. So, I'm trying to, smear her name. So it was easier for the woman to believe that than to believe Mair was scamming her. It's a self-defense mechanism. They don't want to believe they're getting conned. Mm-hmm. They can't. Because what does that say about them to themselves? They can't face it. I get it.
If you'd like to hear more from Walton, check out Anatomy of a Con Artist, the 14 Red Flags to Spot Scammers, Grifters, and Thieves, a book that combines his personal story with practical advice on identifying and avoiding scams. He also hosts the podcast Queen of the Con, where he delves into various con artist stories, including his own, with audio of that time he met Mair after he got her out of jail. I'll put the link to both in the show notes. On another note, some of you have reached out to me on fan mail. So here's how that works. I don't have access to the information to reply to you on that platform. If you want to reach me, you need to email me at scammerstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Or you can send me a message on the Scammer Stories Facebook page. Until next time, Scammer Warriors.